It's the NBA like you've never seen before, because there are a number of huge changes on the way that are getting ready to change the way the game is played. From unexpected rule changes and crazy new additions on the basketball court to prize tournaments and strict new guidelines for some of the most hallowed awards in the game. Even some insane rumors about the league potentially adding a 4-point line and speeding up play by making some shot clock changes. But we'll dive into that after we talk about these huge changes that are confirmed starting in 2024. During the 2023 NBA playoffs, we saw a ton of flailing, a bunch of dudes going airborne, and egregious flops. So much so that superstar players on the biggest stage of the sport were having an in-game flopping contest to see who could punch their ticket faster in the upcoming acting auditions on Broadway. If you are like most fans and avid watchers of the sport, you frown anytime a guy goes cannonballing through the air trying to grab the ref's attention. In the Western Conference semifinals, Dennis Schroeder wanted to join in on the fun, but got called on his bluff on national television by the announcers.
We have to start eliminating this stuff. Where are the fines? It used to be $5,000. What has happened to that? The league needs to bring the hammer down, and the officials need to punish the floppers.
Jeff Van Gundy went off on Dennis, and I guess the league heard him because moving forward, the NBA has gone ahead and approved an in-game flopping penalty for any time a player goes above and beyond in trying to exaggerate contact. This rule being implemented ought to do the trick because the opposing team will be awarded a technical free throw while the flopper gets tagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. But that's not all. Because if the league decides after the game that the flop was ridiculous enough, the player will get hit with a fine starting from $2,000 or more, depending on the circumstances. So it's safe to say that players better start getting their act together, and while they're at it, they better be prepared to do away with all the load management and actually play in more games. Well, unless they're okay with missing out on legacy-defining awards like MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and being selected for an All-NBA team. Folks, the league is cracking down hard on players treating the regular season like how I used to treat my classes when virtual learning first began during the pandemic. I woke up, signed on to show that I'm here, then bounced shortly thereafter. Under the new collective bargaining agreement that will be instated beginning in the 2023-24 NBA season, if you look past all the fine print and all the blabber about the numbers and financial stipulations, you'll find a pretty interesting new change that'll change everyone's outlook on how they approach the season. The NBA previously required players to participate in at least 70% or 58 games of the season in order to be eligible for all the major awards and milestones. Starting next season, players will have to play a minimum of 65 games in order to be eligible for any kind of award. There is one exception, that being in the event that a player suffers a season-ending injury. That player will only be required to play in 62 games. And I know, you're probably thinking that a player can just lace up his sneakers for the jump ball at the start of the game and go sit back down as early as the next dead ball. Yeah, no, that's not how it will work, because to add a game player under your belt, a player will need to play in at least 20 minutes of a ball game, or else it'll be as if he never played in the game entirely. But now I want to get to a pretty seismic change that'll actually make the players pretty happy, at least I think it will. See, in 2023, Nikola Jokic convinced about 99% of the global population that he is now the de facto king of the NBA and the best player in the world. If you still don't agree with that, well, get help. But all jokes aside for a minute, because as the top player in basketball and as the reigning Finals MVP, Nikola Jokic didn't even make the All-NBA first team in 2023. Brothers, that is atrocious. And there's a simple reason why that happened. It's because, for the longest time, the NBA went with the format of 2 guards, 2 forwards, and just 1 big man for the 5 players who'd be selected for each All-NBA team. But thankfully, the NBA is finally getting rid of that rule and is taking a smarter route of allowing each of the All-NBA teams to be determined by which 15 players get the most votes and making the voting system 100% positionless. For example, the 5 players who will get the most votes for an All-NBA team next season will immediately be the 5 players who make the first team, and then the next 5 players with the most votes will be selected to the second team, and so on and so forth. As far as changes coming to the NBA on the court, fans and even players have mixed feelings about it. but I have a feeling that it'll work out for the NBA just fine, kind of like how the NBA play-in tournament turned into something most fans look forward to each season. In case you haven't heard of it by now, in 2024, the NBA is adding a mid-season tournament, an addition that will undoubtedly shake up regular season storylines and provide that extra incentive for players to give it their all. Towards the end of the 2018-19 NBA season, the NBA first thought about a creative idea featuring a mid-season tournament, but there were only baseline discussions and nothing really seemed to pick up at the time, except for the proposed idea of a play-in tournament, which, of course, the NBA went ahead and added just a year and a half later. In 2021, talks about a mid-season tournament again picked up, but to no avail as the league ultimately decided to go away with the idea until another date and time. And here we are, 2 years later, and the NBA has finally gone ahead and added a mid-season tournament. It's controversial, but it doesn't by any means lack innovation, which the NBA is trying its hardest at incorporating so fans can stay hooked throughout the long NBA season. Essentially, the prize for this mid-season tournament will be $500,000 for the winning team. As for how the entire structure of the tournament will work, well, it's not that complicated. The mid-season tournament will feature all 30 teams with only one champion. The tournament will start with what will be called round-robin group play and then progress to single elimination for the final 8 teams that remain. Each team will play a number of pool games that determine the 8 teams that advance to a single elimination tournament, and individual pools will be split into 6 pools of 5 teams, and the winner of each of the 6 pools will advance to the single elimination stage along with 2 wildcard teams. The final 4 to advance will square off in Las Vegas, where rumor has it that the NBA will make these courts specially designed and the venue look and feel completely different from that of a typical regular season game, but further details aren't yet released. Besides, the only attraction NBA fans had outside of the typical regular season games in the past was only NBA All-Star Weekend, and even as Weekend has progressively lost its flavor over the years, with fans not holding back on their criticisms of the lack of effort and incentives for players to really try their best, it seemed like the NBA came to a unique solution for the All-Star Game in 2018 when they implemented the idea of team captains so players could pick their choice of talent and be fully invested in working with the players they chose to win the game, and then take home the cash prize the winning team of the All-Star Game was rewarded with. The problem being, that idea only worked for 1 year, as the 2018 All-Star Game was one of the best All-Star Games in recent memory, while the 2019 All-Star Game went back to players looking lifeless and like they spent too much time enjoying the nightlife the night before. In 2020, the NBA added a target score for each quarter. Again, it worked the first time, but over time, guys just aren't interested. So, with the 2021 All-Star Game being just meh, and the 2022 and 2023 All-Star Games being just okay, what can the NBA do to restore that hype and fanfare with the NBA All-Star that was once the most anticipated moment of the season for NBA fans? While nothing has been made official yet, the basic framework has been proposed, and it's simple, but might be kind of worth it in the end. The All-Star Game could be headed back to what it used to be, and that is the conventional style of Eastern Conference All-Stars versus Western Conference All-Stars. If there's not much intrigue with team captains and players customizing their collection of players, why should the NBA work so hard in broadcasting the draft and try to market the entire process when fans aren't really interested? Besides, the nostalgia of East versus West could make the game more exciting again on its own, and it gives way to conference rivals playing on the same team, which fans love watching. Plus, conference bragging rights mean something to players. But I want to dive into some of these crazy rumors that all of us are desperate to hear more about. Ever since Kenyon Martin Jr. put on a show during the Slam Dunk Contest with the NBA's new rumored basketball of the future, we've all wanted to know where the NBA is at in its plans for making the airless basketball the new official basketball of the NBA. Wilson has already come out and said that the basketball has been engineered specifically to be used in a professional setting, but the NBA hasn't come out with any official dialogue of where the thought process is at with the ball. Just like any potential big change the NBA might consider, it's probably going to begin with them seeing the ball used elsewhere in a pro setting, maybe used by FIBA, kind of like the LED courts are now being used in Madrid. Seeing it put into action almost certainly is going to be the first step. But what the NBA has discussed already is a big change regarding the classic 24-second shot clock. For some interesting background, the shot clock was introduced introduced in the NBA in the 1954-55 season, and it quickly became a pioneering change of the NBA that helped revolutionize the game forever. The NBA reduced the shot clock from 24 seconds to 22 seconds, and then again to 20 seconds in the 1961-62 season, which made the game faster and a ton more entertaining for fans. So given that, the NBA in 2021 discussed instituting a change they've made in the past, and that is by shortening the shot clock from 24 seconds to 22 seconds. But ultimately, the NBA decided to put the conversation aside and revisit it at a later time. But the biggest rumored change that will be guaranteed to change basketball forever on all levels is the addition of a 4-point line. Do you want to see the 4-point line added to the NBA, or will it literally ruin the game? Now, if you want to see the 4-point line added, there might be some good news for you, because for several years now, NBA teams in their practice facilities have a specially painted 4-point line, but this really isn't brought up or mentioned by teams or just the league in general, because it might just be something the NBA doesn't want to push too much right now. But conversations about the addition of a 4-point line go as far back as 2016, when reportedly the NBA gave some significant thought to making the revolutionary addition. In 2020, when the NBA season was suspended due to the pandemic, there were rumors that the NBA would add a 4-point line once the season started back up in the bubble. But of course, these have all been strictly rumors, and we shouldn't expect a 4-point line to be added, at least for the foreseeable future, until the NBA decides which direction they want the league to go moving forward. But at the end of the day, the NBA is clearly trying to work hard and as quickly as possible to institute fresh and innovative changes for the game for the enjoyment of us fans. While we don't know the results of these changes yet, we can say confidently that we have more than a standard regular season and postseason to look forward to. We can expect more superstars playing and not sitting out as much. Things like the midseason tournament can significantly shape the way the season plays out and which teams will benefit the most. What change do you want to see added to the NBA in the future? And how do you feel about the new changes already in place?